Hi there, this is Purgatory with Eve, and I'm Eve. Thanks for joining my channel. This is going to be my book review of The Unworthy by Agustina Bazterrica, which came out this year in the month of March, I believe. So let's get into the review. I very much wanted to enjoy this book, and I suppose that I did, but I can't deny that I was disappointed in the lack of direction or conclusions of the story. The Unworthy is a short novel that takes place in a seemingly not so distant future where the earth has been ravaged and ruined, causing the earth to only barely be habitable. We follow our main character through the journal entries, the secret journal entries that she writes at night. The setting of the story is in a compound called the Sacred Sisterhood, where there's a whole ranking system for the religion / cult that they've created. I found this really confusing. I found that the system was a little difficult for me to keep up with, which is the main reason I don't really read fantasy books, because my brain can't handle a lot of information. And I don't think that I can accurately reiterate what the rankings and system was, so I'm not even going to try. The book starts with some very grotesque and horrifying images right off the bat, and we are introduced to our main character's nemesis, Lourdes. I personally found the main character unlikable. I'm unsure if I don't think we find out the main character's name in the story, but she was not very likable to me. But it's not something that I think makes the book less enjoyable. I actually think that it works in favor of the story, portraying the circumstances and culture within the Sacred Sisterhood and how they encourage the women to treat each other. So I think that it was purposeful, and I think that it works for the story, because typically if I don't like a main character, it kind of makes me not want to read it, but it works in this case. I enjoyed the writing and premise of the story. I only wish it would have gone deeper into the world building or just been longer in general. This book could have been twice, if not more, the length, and I would have liked more of a completed arc and more answers and conclusions to the story. If you enjoyed Tender as the Flesh by Bazterrica, I think going into this story with no expectations or a desire for something similar would be the way to go, because I think the only similarity is Bazterrica's writing style. I personally would have loved a fuller scale story with more conflict resolution, but I don't blame the book at all. It's just not the style of reading that I enjoy. This read as an extended vignette, whereas I was hoping for more of a completed novel similar to Tender's the Flesh. I do think that it works for this book, though, given that it is written in secretive journal entries from our narrator. I would recommend this book to people who enjoy a poetic prose style of writing, or are interested in light body horror and want a quick but impactful read. I thought about certain parts of this book randomly in the past week or two since I've finished it, so it stays with you a little bit, which is nice. Overall, this is a powerful and abstract piece of work, reminiscent of The Handmaid's Tale, the show, because I haven't read the book yet, and also reminded me of 1984, told in a blunt but poetic style. If you like to read for story progression, I would not recommend. But if you like vignettes, if you like more of the poetic abstract side of literature, then I would recommend. So now is the point in the review where I will be talking about some spoilers, just things that go a little bit more in depth to the story and what I liked about it, what I didn't like. So if you have not read the book and you want to and you don't like spoilers, skip ahead to my final rating. And if not, then, stick around. There's one part that's my favorite part of the book where I just feel like the horror imagery is peak. So I'm just going to read a passage from that part of the book. We felt an icy cold, a strange wind blowing from the center of that dead garden. The rocking chair was moving, back and forth, back and forth. That was the insistent noise, a sound like a broken song. Back and forth. A sick song amplified by the blank walls. Cersei moved back, afraid, but I stepped closer. The first thing I saw was a woman, her eyes closed, who seemed to be nursing a baby wrapped in an animal skin. But then I looked closer. What was latched to her breast seemed to be a rat. It had teeth and the tail of a rat, but it was bigger. She was cradling it. This thing was eating her. I moved back, covering my mouth because I didn't want to scream. I didn't want that thing to look at me. Cersei approached slowly, prepared to attack, and the thing stopped eating and bared its teeth. Teeth stained with blood. I think it growled or made a noise like stifled laughter. The woman kept rocking with her eyes closed. Back and forth, back and forth. The best part of the book is probably when our narrator and Lucia first meet up in the woods. That moment was written in such a beautiful and special way. It was a great juxtaposition to the terror and abuse featured in the rest of the story. And I definitely wasn't expecting a sapphic romance. So it was, it was nice. And that was probably my favorite part of the book. Another notable part of the story is during another flashback with Cersei, where they came across a house with paintings of children crying, hanging on the walls. It reminded me of the movie Big Eyes, which I have never actually seen, but I remember when it came out, and the way that it was written was beautiful, and I could feel the rage and exhaustion from our main character through the page. So I'll read like a small passage from that because I really liked it. So it says, "In this new town, the small town, the locks on the doors were broken. We knew the chance of finding something we could use was very unlikely, but we still went from house to house to see if there was some food, a tin can, a bottle of water. In one of the houses, the only one that was red, there were paintings on the walls. Paintings of barefoot, dirty children with large, tear-filled eyes and bits of bread in their hands. No one had touched them. I stood looking at them while Cersei explored. I was silent, unable to move, because the sad, famished children had hypnotized me, paralyzed me. I wondered what kind of person would hang those paintings and look at them every day. At that moment, standing in that empty house, full of useless images, all I felt was rage. I also felt disgust, but I didn't understand why. I began to shred the paintings with my knife, deforming each painting, each child with large tear-filled eyes, while I cried and screamed incoherent words, screamed my exhaustion, cried because I didn't have a bit of bread, because no one was going to paint my reality and hang it on a wall." That is it for the spoiler section of this video, and now we can move on to my final ratings. We're going to do an overall rating, plot rating, character rating, what I recommend, the format that I read, and the genre. For the overall rating, I gave this story 3 stars because it wasn't great, but I still liked it. For the plot rating, I gave it 4 stars because I think that the plot idea is really awesome and unique. Like I said, I just wish that there was more of it in like the story format, like the traditional story format. For the character rating, I gave it 2 stars because like I said, I didn't really like the main character, but I think that is, by design. But that doesn't change that I didn't really like her. Would I recommend this book? Not really. I would definitely recommend Tender as the Flesh before I recommend this, but I guess that's my problem, is comparing them. The format that I read this book was on my e-reader, so ebook, and the genre that I would classify this is dystopian horror. And that is going to be it for this review of The Unworthy by Agustina Bazterrica. What did you think? Have you read this book? And would you read this book after this review that I've given? Let me know down in the comments. I would love to discuss the book with anybody. So that's all for me, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Please like and subscribe if you feel like it. Bye!